Hey, what's going on, AP World? We have a video for you today on famous abolitionists to know, and it's important to note that there are literally thousands of abolitionists, but I'm only going to focus on the really big ones that are likely to appear on your APUSH exam. So it's not to diminish the work of any other individuals, but just ones that you should be familiar with and are most likely to appear on your exam. So let's start off with early abolition. And by the way, abolition means to get rid of slavery. So we have Quakers that gathered mostly in Pennsylvania, thanks to this guy, William Penn, who was a Quaker. And they were abolitionists during the colonial era, which was really, really unique at the time. Not many people were outspoken against slavery. Another early form of abolitionism is the American Colonization Society, which was founded in 1817. And the goal of this society was to send former slaves or freed slaves to Africa, and specifically Liberia. Prominent members included Henry Clay and Abraham Lincoln early on in his career, and many others. And this was not a successful organization for many reasons, one of which is the fact that most former slaves did not want to go to Africa. Many of these individuals only knew America as their home, and they wanted to stay in America. They did not want to go to Africa. So this organization is not very successful. Okay, let's get to some specific individuals you should know. Harriet Beecher Stowe from Cincinnati is a very important abolitionist. She wrote the book Uncle Tom's Cabin in the 1850s. It was published supposedly when Abe Lincoln was president. He met Harriet Beecher Stowe and said to her, "So you're the little woman that started this great war." So there was a huge impact. And what the book does is it showed the evils of slavery, particularly when it came to breaking up families. And last night I just saw the movie 12 Years a Slave, which is an incredible, incredible movie. I encourage you to go watch it. And there's many bad scenes in it, but one of the really gut wrenching scenes was when they divided up a mother from her two children, and it was very, very sad. And that's kind of the focus of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Theodore Dwight Weld wrote a book called American Slavery as It Is. He's a very active member in the abolitionist movement, and he marries a woman named Angelina Grimke. You may be asking yourself, who is Angelina Grimke? Well, she and her sister, Sarah, were Southern women that advocated both abolitionism and women's rights. So this was very, very progressive for that time to have Southern women advocate abolitionism and women's rights. Not many people were doing that at the time, especially Southern women. Harriet Tubman, one of the most famous abolitionists, she was a former slave and helped other slaves escape via the Underground Railroad. She went back many times to the South and helped free over 300 people. She was an inspiration for many, many people. David Walker was an African American who called for unity among blacks, and he called for violence to end slavery, as that is one of the only ways to get rid of slavery. Elijah Lovejoy was a printer from Illinois, and he was also a minister, and he owned his own newspaper. And in his newspaper, he focused on abolitionism. And a mob comes to his warehouse in Illinois, and they burn it down, and in the process, they shoot him 5 times with a shotgun, and he is killed. So he becomes a martyr for the abolitionist movement. And he helps inspire somebody by the name of John Brown, who we'll talk about right now. John Brown was part of Bleeding Kansas in the 1850s, and he was the architect of the raid at Harper's Ferry. I'm going to do a whole video on John Brown, so look for that soon. This is a huge immediate cause of the Civil War. So those are abolitionists that you should definitely know. Here are two that you absolutely, positively, no ifs, ands, or buts, must know. William Lloyd Garrison published a newspaper called The Liberator, and he called for the immediate end to slavery without compensation, or uncompensated. That means that the slave owners will not be paid for the slaves that they have to free. He disliked the Constitution since it allowed slavery, and he urged secession by the North. He said the North should break away from the South because it is too corrupt and they condone slavery. He was very, very radical for his time. Somebody who worked with William Lloyd Garrison was Frederick Douglass, arguably the most famous former slave. He was a former slave, a great orator, and he published a newspaper called the North Star. He traveled all around America and even Europe as well to speak out against slavery. And he also attended the women's rights movement at Seneca Falls in 1848. So he was a very well-known leading abolitionist and also a women's rights advocate as well. All right, those are virtually all of the abolitionists that you need to know for your AP exam. Thank you very much for watching. If I can ask you to take a moment and subscribe to my channel. If you found the video helpful, please hit the like button below. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the section below and I will get back to you. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day, guys.